So good day everyone, I am Jenelyn Banquil, a third-year student at Mindanao State University, Boog Campus with the degree of BSA Agronomy. So this day, I'm going to discuss in Chapter 3, which is the basic elements of supply and demand. So the demand schedule. So when we talk about demand schedule, it shows the relationship between the price and quantity both, and this is called the demand schedule or the demand curve. So next is the demand curve. So when you talk about the demand curve, it is showing how the demand for a commodity or services varies with changes in its price. So in fact, according to law of demand sloping according to law of downward sloping demand, when the price of a commodity is rise, buyers tend to buy less of the commodity. Then similarly, when the price is lowered, other things being constant, of course, in this case, the quantity demanded increases. So next is the shift in the demand. So mayroon tayong shift in the demand. It is means that at any price, the quantity demanded will be different that it was before. So where in fact the causes demand to shift just because of the factors that can shift the demand curve for goods and services, causing a different quantity to be demanded at any given prices. And this include the changes in test, population, income, prices of substitutes or complement goods. So moto ang shift in the demand. So why does the demand curve shift? So why does the demand curve shift? So and it because in influences other the good price chance. The demand curve shift when there are changes in factors other than a goods on price which affect the quantity purchased. We call this the changes shift in demand. So demand increase when the quantity decrease at each price increases. So next is the demand schedule. So mayroon tag supply schedule. It involves the terms on which business produce and sell their products. So in the other hand, ang supply schedule or supply curve for a commodity, it shows the relationship between its market price and the amount of the commodity that producers are willing to produce and sell, other things held constant. So next is the supply curve. So when we talk about the demand supply curve in economics, it shows the relationship between product price and quantity of product that a seller is willing and able to supply. So next is the shift and supply. So next is the shift in supply. So when we talk about shift in supply, we can see that when there is a changes factors other than a good goods on price affect the quantity supplied, and we can call this shift in supply. Supply increase or decreases when the amount supplied increases or decreases at each market price. So, in short, kung ingon ta og shift in supply, it means there is a change in the quantity supplied at every prices. So next is the equilibrium of supply and demand. So may tag equilibrium of demand and supply in a competitive market. Ning equilibrium of supply and demand, it occurs when the forces of supply and demand are in balance. The equilibrium price is the price at which the quantity demanded just equals the quantity supplied. So, at a price above the equilibrium, so therefore, ang mga producers want to supply more than consumers want to buy, which it result in surplus of goods and exerts downwards pressure on price. And similarly, too low a price generates a shortage, and therefore ang buyers tend to bid price upward to the equilibrium. So next is the equilibrium with supply and demand curves. So the equilibrium price and the quantity come where the amount willingly supplied equals the amount willingly demanded. In the competitive market, this equilibrium is found at the intersection of the supply and the demand curve. So therefore, there are no shortage or surpluses at the equilibrium price. So next is the shift in the supply and the demand curves. So ingon tag shift in the supply and demand curves, it changes the equilibrium price and quantity and increase the demand, which shift the demand curve to the right, where increase both equilibrium price and the quantity, and increase in the supply, which shift the supply curve to the right. So decrease price and increase quantity demanded. So therefore, minta og shift in the supply and demand curve change the equilibrium price and the quantities. Then supply, demand, and immigration. So the supply, demand, and immigration, those immigrants who increase the supply of labor and demand goods and services, causing the demand for labor to increase. So when people migrate into an economy, the both demand and supply goods, wages would go up in the other sectors of the labor market because demand increases whereas ang supply stay constant. So next is the rationing by prices. So mintag rationing prices, it is the methods of rationing that allocates the limited quantities of goods and services using markets and the prices. So if the quantity of a given commodity become increasingly limited, then the price rises. Only buyers most willing and able to buy the commodity and pay the higher price obtain the goods. So So that's all, and thank you.